So it's a busy few weeks ahead.
Very
for you
busy
all.
few weeks.
Are you looking forward to celebrating with the Queen?
Yes, very much so. It's going to be a fun sort of packed schedule with lots of events going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And publicly and privately celebrating as well.
Yes. A big dinner, I think, probably on her birthday as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep her up very late. She won't like that at all.
Thank you so much for talking to us. What does it mean for you to be able to celebrate the 90th birthday with the Queen?
It means an awful lot. I think it's sort of really sinking in now as we're sort of fast approaching it, just how much of a major milestone it is to have the Queen celebrating her 90th, and after everything she's achieved, and it's quite a moment for the family.
Mm-hmm. How important is family to your grandmother? It can't always have been easy fitting in being monarch and motherhood, but how important is it for her to get everybody around together?
It's really important. I think she puts family sort of very much alongside her duty and her role, and it's what really makes her tick. You know, she works very hard, and she sees her service as very important, but behind closed doors she worries and minds an awful lot about the rest of the family and wants to make sure everyone is happy and sort of, you know, finding their own path and being a success.
In terms of her birthday, do you fight over what you're all going to get her as a birthday present? Is it difficult?
There's a lot of, what do you give the Queen? I mean, that's just like the hardest question ever. So we regularly have a lot of debate. Harry and I have decided to have a joint present this year, so it makes it a bit easier when we can share the responsibility of getting it right.
In terms of you growing up, what was it like to have the Queen as a grandmother? How hands-on was she when she had the time to be?
I think when we were very young, obviously, it was harder for her to have so much time. And we were obviously living elsewhere as well, so we were never really all together in the same place. But whenever we had the family moments and we met up, she'd be very keen on watching what the children were up to. And I think there were moments when she loved the noise and running around the house. It kind of brought the house to life, and it kind of made the real family atmosphere alive. But there were other moments where I think she just wanted to smack us over the head and tell the naughty, noisy children to go next door. But no, she's always been incredibly loving towards the children, and I've seen that now with Charlotte and George. You know, she's very doting on the children and likes to keep an eye, particularly Charlotte. She's fascinated by what Charlotte gets up to.
Well, people talk about her having a great sense of fun. Do you have any particularly fond childhood memories when you had a lot of fun with your grandmother?
There was, there's been plenty of moments. I think the earliest one that I can remember, which has stuck in my mind for a long time, was Peter, my cousin, and I were on a quad bike in Balmoral, and we were chasing Zara around, who was on a go-kart. Peter and I managed to herd Zara into a lamppost, and the lamppost came down and nearly squashed her. And I remember my grandmother being the first person out of Balmoral, running across the lawn in her kilt, and came charging over and gave us the most mighty bollocking. And that sort of stuck in my mind from that moment on that I really should be a little bit more careful about what I'm doing and try not to kill my cousins.
In terms of horsepower, obviously your grandmother is very fond of going out riding. You and your brother really enjoy your polo now. Was it the Queen who first got you onto a horse?
It wasn't actually the Queen the first time, no. She has obviously been a huge source of encouragement to us for riding. I think more than anything she would love us to be more interested in racing. Her passion for racing, as everyone knows, is just second to none. She comes completely alive and really relishes every race she can get to. But I think on the sort of normal riding, I think my father was very keen for us to get on a horse from a very young age.
So the Queen hasn't got Prince George onto a horse quite yet, then?
Not just yet.
Bit young.
Not just yet, but she has asked many times. Yeah.
She's trying.
She's trying hard.
Looking at maybe more of the formal side of royal life, I've always wondered whether, is there a sort of in-house traineeship, as it were? Does she sit you down and talk to you from a young age about what it means to carry out royal engagements, what you should be doing, things like walkabouts? There must be a real art to those.
I think walkabouts are completely chaos. They have a meaning of their own. You just end up just walking in all sorts of different directions. But it's fantastic the people you meet from walkabouts. It's sort of the sort of thing you can never organise or plan. It just sort of spontaneously happens, and you get to meet people you never thought you would meet, or people who friends or whatever, and it's a very interesting dynamic. But no, there's no apprenticeship, sadly. It'd be very nice if there was sometimes. But she's always on hand to guide and to be there for support and advice. And she's done it all. She's been there, done it for 90 odd years pretty much. So her source of knowledge and wisdom is huge.
When you're with the Queen carrying out engagements, what kind of reaction do you get from both the general public but also world leaders potentially? They must, kind of the whole strata, be in awe of her.
They melt around her. And I've seen the strongest men just literally sort of become putty in their fingers. They are all in awe of her, and that's the thing. And I think the longer she's gone on for in her life and service, the more people have warmed to her more. And she's now reached sort of the 90 milestone. And I think there's just so much love and admiration for her around the world, particularly with world leaders actually, who sometimes you can imagine they're all sort of vying for their spot. But with the Queen, they see her in a very different light.
Talking about world leaders, for you now and your brother and your wife, you're taking on a lot more of the foreign travel on behalf of your grandmother and grandfather. How does it feel to be representing them when you're going abroad? Is it a great pressure? Does she talk to you a lot about the countries you're going to? Because she's been there, she's done it in most of these places.
No, she has. I mean, she's been to... I was trying to ask her the other day about how many countries she actually hasn't been to, because that's an easier question for her to answer than where have you been. But no, I think there's an element of a little bit of pressure, only because you don't want to let anyone down. You don't let yourself down, but equally you really don't want to let her down. But like I say, she's always on hand for advice and support. And it's as much about us doing it our way as it is about getting it right. And she's the first person to support that sort of way. She likes the idea that we have our own style. It's a new generation, and there's no point everyone doing it the same way. It's the evolution and the modernisation of the royal family and how it does its stuff that actually is more interesting and keeps it relevant.
But with the more ceremonial side of things, surely there must be a formula to doing it. You're doing more and more investitures. Presumably she must have said, right, this is how you should be doing it. This is how long you speak to people. Yeah. Knighthoods, for example. Yeah, knighthoods, very tricky. Very tricky. You cut ears off if you're not careful. But no, I think when I first started investitures, I was pretty terrified because it's like you say, it's a formula, it's very strict. And I did ask her for advice, and I had a run through for my first investiture because I really didn't want to muck it up and cut someone's ear off. It would have been a little bit embarrassing. But after a while, it kind of it just develops its own, and it's so important that you listen and give as much attention as you can to each individual. There's a lot of people come through, and when you hear their stories, you want to talk to them for about an hour, but you only get about 2 minutes with each person, if that. So it's quite it's a tricky process to try and make sure that you get to give people as much time as you possibly can, because I've met some of the most amazing people from investitures, and it's incredible to actually see around the country what goes on. There are so many wonderful people doing incredible voluntary work, foster carers, or whatever it might be. There's some fantastic stories. How supportive has the Queen been in terms of you trying to balance at the moment royal duties and your job as an air ambulance pilot? Lots of people have their own views about how you're balancing that, but what does she think?
She's, surprisingly, she's very supportive of everything I'm doing at the moment. She understands that I'm a family man and I want to be around for my children as much as I can. She understands that whilst we've got 3 very active generations of the family, she's very much at the helm, the Queen. She's, incredibly active. Her schedule's packed. My father is very active, charitably and otherwise. And there's me and Harry and Catherine and everyone else. So it's kind of, there's a time and a place for, taking on more and more responsibilities, and that will come, and I will look forward to doing that. But at the moment, I'm very much concentrating on my family, serving the community with the air ambulance, which is an incredibly worthwhile, meaningful job that I love, working alongside some of the best doctors in the country. And also serving the Queen as and when she requires me to. So, yeah, it's a good balance, and she's very supportive of that.
She's backing you up. What has she meant for you as a female influence in your life, especially during your teenage years?
I think she's been a very strong female influence, and having lost my mother at a very young age, it's been particularly important for me that I've had somebody like the Queen to look up to, and who's been there, who's understood some of the more complex issues that when you lose a loved one can bear. So, no, she's been incredibly supportive, and I've really appreciated her guidance.
If we look back at when your grandmother became Queen, she was only 25. She's learnt over all those decades. She has learnt so much. Do you talk to her about what it's like to be sovereign and what that may mean for you in the future?
I haven't yet, but I probably should. I remember very much with my great-grandmother, actually, the Queen Mother, that a lot of my friends at the time were saying, you must speak to your great-grandmother about what it was like in the war, and her experiences, because it is very important that the younger generations fully understand quite what the other generations lived through, and gain as much experience and knowledge of them as you can. And I haven't breached that particular subject with her just yet, but everything else around work life and visions and objectives, I do very much talk to her about, and she's very, like I said, she's very supportive and very willing to talk about it.
Everyone will be obviously celebrating her 90th birthday. We are so used to seeing those big celebrations, you all coming out onto the balcony at Buckingham Palace, that sea of people in front of you on the Mall. Do you ever get used to that in terms of appreciating just what the Queen means to the country and the Commonwealth? I
think it's quite a surreal moment every time, and it must be even more surreal for everyone watching as well. But it's become a very iconic moment, having the whole family on the balcony, and it's something that I never really appreciated growing up, and only now do you start to sort of see the pictures and the history and the sort of importance of it. But I think it's a unifying moment, and that's what the Queen does. She's a huge symbol for unification, and I think it's a real focal point, having the balcony and the Mall and everything like that. It's the front of Buckingham Palace is one of the most famous buildings in the world, so to have the Queen and her family at the Buckingham Palace there, it's a very symbolic moment.
And if they're singing Happy Birthday, will you all be joining in?
Well, we'll try and get it in time. There's quite a delay between the crowds and us, but yes, I'm sure there'll be a happy birthday moment along the lines.
Prince William, thank you so much for talking to us, and enjoy the celebrations with the Queen.
Thank you.
Thank you.